Welcome to Mormon Book Reviews, where an evangelical encounters the restoration. I'm your host, Stephen Pynakker, and this is another special Tuesday Tangents. Folks, stay tuned to the end because I'm going to be telling about my experiences that I had at both the Sacred Grove and Hill Cumorah this past Sunday while attending the Mormon History Association Conference. It was really a great experience overall, the conference as well as Sunday at the very cradle of Mormonism, spent in the afternoon there. So I want to talk about that. And I just want to also mention to everybody, we just passed 500,000 views for the channel, and we're closing in on 5,000 subscribers. So I feel those are really cool, two real big, important benchmarks. To hit 5,000 subscribers and 500,000 views. It's pretty amazing to think a little over 2 years ago we started this. 2 years ago, it was the anniversary of me going. I got a little reminder. Hey, this photo was taken 2 years ago. And it was me sitting next to the Joseph Smith Sphinx at Gilgal Gardens in downtown Utah. Well, that was 2 years ago to the day that I had attended my very first Mormon History Association conference. And then later that morning, Richard Bushman comes and sees me and comes and sits at my table for lunch. And we started talking. And I told him, I said, Richard, this is 2 years ago today, you and I first met. And 2 years ago at that point, well, I had 100, I don't know why I remember, but I had 106 subscribers and less than 10,000 views. 2 years later, we're closing on 5,000 subscribers and over 500,000 views now already. My, how far we've come. Thank you to everybody for helping me get there. Thank you for spreading the word. Thank you for those of you who have, really hopped on and encouraged people to watch this channel, promoted it. Couldn't have done it without you. Couldn't have done it with all the supporters and all my friends. So I arrived on Thursday. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually kind of give you an overview of the conference, some of the people that I've talked to, some of the guests that I have already committed to being booked on the program. And again, I want to then talk about the awesome time at Hill Cumorah as well as at the Sacred Grove. So I arrived Thursday. I got there for early check-in, and I ran into Christine Blythe and Matt Bowen and Chris, who of course was a guest on my program to promote the Mormon History Association. I happened to get there and be one of the first people to get checked in. And so that Thursday was just kind of a quiet day. I put on social media, hey, I'm here. I want to hang with anybody, and I'm used to, in Utah, usually people will get in touch with me pretty quickly. Well, by golly, within 5 minutes, Cheryl Bruno direct messages me, and she says, well, me and Mikado Hunter want to go out for lunch. So we went to a place called Dinosaur Barbecue, which is just down the street. Somebody had recommended that to me. So we had a nice barbecue dinner in downtown Rochester. By the way, I stayed at the Hyatt, and actually my roommate was Devin Jensen. Why? Well, originally his roommate was supposed to be Case Griffiths, but he received a church calling, so he was unable to attend MHA. So Devin offered the room to me, so I was roommates with Devin Jensen of BYU. So that was really fun. But yeah, so we had the and then the Hyatt was connected to the actual conference center, so that was perfect place to be. So I had a wonderful lunch with Cheryl Mikado that night. A black gospel choir from one of the AME churches, one of the historic AME African Methodist Episcopal churches. That's what AME stands for. Churches gave also a talk about some prominent civil rights icons in the Rochester area, as well as also talked about Frederick Douglass, and because Frederick Douglass was actually a very prominent citizen of Rochester, New York. So we were blessed by a black choir, Black Baptist choir, and then they got to hang out with some of my friends. I actually I would hung out with almost every night, hung out with Kyle Bashirs and Colby Townsend and Christopher Smith, Cheryl Bruno, Susan Staker, and others. I was going to say Bryce Blankenagel. I didn't call you Aaron Shalafalaf. I actually called him Aaron Shalafalaf a couple times while I'm there. For whatever reason, I get those two names mixed up. And there are many other people that came and that I've hung out with after hours, which was really, really fun. And so I want to just talk a little bit about the conference itself and some of the sessions that I did. So this was the program, Beginnings. It was the title of it, and this was the 58th annual anniversary, 58th annual one. And I want to just go over some of the conferences that I attended, just to give you guys a little taste of what this was all about. So this is just one session. So from Friday morning, from 10:30 a.m. to noon, this is how many sessions there are, folks. You literally cannot make your way to every single one. You're going to miss out on stuff, and that's why you got to pick things. So the first session I went to was the I am still recovering from my trip. The materiality and texts of the early sacred texts of Mormonism. We'll get this right. Sorry, folks. And that was chaired by Sonia Hazard. And then I got to meet Elizabeth Fenton from the University of Vermont, who's actually a very good friend of Christopher Thomas's. And she regularly goes to the Book of Mormon Studies Association, has presented there. But she actually gave a presentation about did Mormon invent the 3-ring binder? Interesting stuff. Had an interesting conversation with her. Robin Jensen was also in that session, as well as was Ann Taves. So it was great to hear from all three of those. And Elizabeth's a great person. I was really glad to meet a friend of Christopher Thomas's. The next session, again, this is 3 times a day. It's like this, folks. It's crazy. This is why I tell lay people, you get out to Mormon History Association, you're going to learn so much. You're going to have information overload. I also want to remind all of you that next year's is going to be in Kirtland, Ohio. So make sure first week of June, you have your calendar blocked off to get out to Kirtland, Ohio for next year's Mormon History Association. The next session I went to was the history and impact of the Joseph Smith papers. And that was really, really good. That's just a good thing, because I'm going to be having a panel from the Joseph Smith papers later this week. I'm going to be interviewing them, and we will release that later this month. So I just want to let you all know that. And then the next session was the afternoon session of Mormon History Journals, Meet the Editors. So I had Christopher Jones, of course, who I've had as a guest, Roger Terry of BYU Studies, Benjamin Park, and Taylor Petrie were all in there. And it's actually, just so you know, Taylor and Benjamin are coming on the program. All right. They both committed to coming on the program. So we'll be having them on soon. And I actually asked a question about social media. How do journals utilize podcastings and social media as part of the new generation of, not just printing up a journal, but, actually involved in social media and podcasting and YouTubing and all that. Okay. So Saturday morning, this was what was so fascinating. Saturday morning, I'm in this first session, and Kyle Bashirs, our Baptist friend, who from Mobile, Alabama, Baptist minister, he gave a presentation and it was called Insights into the First Vision, and it was chaired by J.B. Hawes, and Richard Saunders was on there, Kyle Bashirs, William Perez, and Maxine Hanks. Now, Maxine Hanks and Richard Saunders did it via Zoom, but Kyle and William Perez were there to give their papers. And they were both really good. And William introduced himself to me beforehand, and he's like, I know who you are. I love you. And when he found out I lived in Florida, he's like, he is a CE that works for the Institute. He's a CES instructor at Florida State in Tallahassee. And he asked me to come and speak to the group. So I said, I'll make the ride. I think he's part of like an interreligious dialogue committee involved in something like that along those lines. So I told him, I said, I'll make the drive to Tallahassee. It's about a 4.5, 5-hour drive, and I'll make the drive. And I look forward to speaking to the students. So that's really great. But it was so funny because I was talking to JB, and I don't think he'll mind me saying this, but JB went to me and he's like, and JB is a professor at Brigham Young. And he goes to me, he says, I just want to tell you that we really love you at BYU, Steve. We really appreciate you, and that a lot of the professors at BYU watch the program, that they're big fans. So I was like, wow. And he said they love me, which is pretty awesome. Then Saturday afternoon was a real important session. That one was the visual images of Joseph Smith, and this had to do with the Joseph Smith daguerreotype. Also talking about paintings of Joseph and stuff as well. And Nancy Ross and Lauren DeSalvo, one of them was there. I don't know which one was there, spoke, as well as Lachlan Mackay, and Curtis Weber. Curtis Weber, of course, many of you saw the reason why I was going to release the Joseph Smith photograph today on Tuesday, but Peggy Fletcher Stack of the Salt Lake Tribune was going to break the news story about the further developments, information on the Joseph Smith daguerreotype on Thursday, and I was like, well, I got to put mine out then too, because I'm not going to be scooped. Mormon Book Reviews is not going to get scooped, folks, especially when it comes to the Joseph Smith photograph. And so Curtis gave his presentation, only 20 minutes. Of course, you can watch the almost 3-hour-long presentation here on Mormon Book Reviews. Lachlan, he's a great guy. We're good friends. And of course, we all know that Lachlan, the very first interview that he did for the Joseph Smith's daguerreotype was on my program within 24 hours of the paper being announced and released on with the Whitmer or John Whitmer Historical Society. So then later that day, afterwards, there was another one called Context, Composition, and Reception of Joseph Smith's Text. That was really good. And a lot of my homies were on this. And so Robin Jensen was the chair, Christopher Smith, Susan Staker, and Colby Townsend all presented. So I had to be there for them, man. And so I was able to listen to all of their sessions. Now, there was another person there, Greer Bates, coordinator. I did not get to see them because I actually went over to see Patrick Mason speak in another room right around the time because he was doing a presentation on Ezra Taft Benson. So I had to check that one out. And plus, I really like Patrick. He's such a cool guy. But yeah, it was great. It just was really fascinating to be able to kind of get a preview of their presentations the night before and then be able to sit on the session. So then there was an awards dinner on Saturday night. I also want to mention that the B.H. Roberts Foundation has a financial partnership with the Mormon History Association, in which they are helping award scholarships and funding to, I believe it's scholarships. I'm not exactly sure. So I really want to give Josh. I talked with Josh at the B.H. Roberts Foundation, told him I really enjoy the work that they're doing, and that I would like to get them on there my program sometime and talk about Mormon R and some of the stuff that the great organization B.H. Roberts Foundation is doing. So the awards banquet went really well. That was Friday, Saturday. I don't even remember. Yeah, it was crazy. I think the awards night was Friday, and then we had the closing dinner on Saturday night. That's right. Yeah, so that was Friday night. And so, but a few things. I met some cool people roaming around. I met this guy named Amande, and he's from Baylor University, which is Southern Baptist University, as a non-denominational Christian. And I just happened to walk by the room when I heard him say Walter Martin. I did a UE, and I'm like, Walter Martin, Kingdom of the Cults. He's pretty well known. He's an evangelical writer. And this guy, I watched the last 10 minutes of his presentation. Actually, they were doing Q&A. So I was able to get a Q&A in there and found out the information. And what he did is like a history of evangelical apologetics materials from the 1950s to the 1980s. So basically encompasses from Walter Martin to the Godmakers. Representations of Mormonism in the larger community. That's all that people knew in the evangelical world during those times. That's all they had. So I asked them to come on my program. And Amanda, you reach out to me. By the way, folks, it looks just like a young Barack Obama. It's a really cool dude. So I think that the Mormon History Association is a great organization. I recommend that people really look into it. I'm going to leave a link in the description to their website. I think that you should definitely look to do something. Head out there next year to Kirtland, Ohio. I don't know if registration's open yet, but when it's open, jump on that. It's going to be actually taking place in Cleveland. So it's going to be a little outside of Kirtland. We're going to be using some facilities. They will be using facilities in Cleveland. Okay, let me make sure. Oh, just a few other things before I talk about the Sacred Grove in Hill Cumorah. This summer, I'm hoping to get out to Sunstone. I'm hoping that I will be the ump between the Exmos and the fundamentalists, which I was last year because I am the Switzerland of Mormonism. I'm hoping that I'll be reinvited as the umpire. I don't know. Maybe they didn't like the fact that I fixed it in favor of the fundamentalists because they bribed me with shares of the Dream Mine, but that's my little joke there. But went into extra innings. It was a great game, so hopefully I'll get out to that. Also, actually, just to let y'all know, I haven't really talked much about it, but I will be presenting. I've been asked to present at JWHA, John Whitmer Historical Association, which is going to be taking place this September in Texas. And if all goes according to plan, I'm hoping to get out to the United Kingdom to speak at Sunstone, UK. I've been invited. But they haven't really been in touch with me. They haven't been giving me a whole lot of information. Now they've invited Moroni Lopez Jessup, and apparently they're paying his way. So I guess that must be nice. But apparently they're in touch with him. For those of you who are involved in the United Kingdom, Sunstone, UK, please get in touch with me. I'd like to know what the information is, what the details are. I don't know if you're going to pay my way or if I need to fundraise. So those of you, I might need some money to do these trips. So if you'd like to help me, maybe you could donate to PayPal. I also might set up a GoFundMe. So let me know if you'd be interested in me doing a GoFundMe to maybe fund the trips and maybe help out the channel, because I definitely need to do something like that. I'm going to go through. Oh, one thing really interesting. Really interesting. Greg Cofford books. Okay. I just got word they're going to be putting out a very special edition of Method Infinite. And so I want to let everybody know that I'm going to have Cheryl Bruno and Nick Latursky to come on to talk about this special edition, very unique edition of the Method Infinite Masonry and Mormonism book that we will be talking about. So that's when they will be coming on the show to promote that. So you guys get that going. Let's get that publication ready to go so I can get him on the program. Now I'm just kind of riffing here, so I got to make sure I'm covering everything. Yeah, Rick Bennett, I hung out with him a little bit. We mostly just ate dinners together. We kind of both went our separate ways on a lot of this. I remember the first two MHAs, I was by Rick's side the whole time because I didn't know anybody, but now everybody knows me and it's kind of cool. So, okay, this is a deal. Um, Sunday morning, I check out of my hotel and I get a ride with Rick and Barbara Brown and Barbara Brown's lovely daughter. I got to meet her. And we drove down to attend the devotional, which is at 9 a.m. in the Sacred Grove. And they had it booked, and there wasn't an empty pew bench there. It was, well, I'd say over 100 people there. And so I'd say that's about a quarter of the audience. So MHA had about 400 plus physical attendees and some more that were watching online that were there. And I counted probably about 100, over 100 at the Sacred Grove. So about a quarter of the people who attended MHA appear to have been also attending the at the Grove in this at the devotional. And there was a woman, a beautiful singer. She actually sings for the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. She sang some songs and also led the group in some songs. It was very nice. And then Kathleen Flake, the prominent scholar, Kathleen Flake, gave the talk, and it was really, really good. So then, of course, I'm sitting there. I'm like, well, the rest of the group, they're going to go on their tour bus. I didn't plan to do the tour because I was flying out. I didn't pay for it, and it was all sold out. So I just got dropped off at the visitor center there at the farm, the Smith Farm in the Sacred Grove. And I kind of saw one of the elders, and I said, hey, one of the senior missionaries, and I was like, "Is it okay if I store my luggage here somewhere because I'm going to be roaming around this afternoon?" And they're like, "Oh, here." They all unlocked a private office, put my luggage in there. I took an Uber to the Grandin shop, and it's funny because but I did want to say this before I did that. I actually then, once I dropped off my luggage, I went back into the Sacred Grove, and I was blown away how big it is. It just keeps going and going and going and going, and somebody could get lost. It's really something. And there's a minimal amount of signs, so it's just very much like you're walking the woods in this way that would have probably been familiar to Joseph. And there was a lot of people who were just kind of walking there. It was kind of like a pilgrimage site for a lot of people. They were very quiet. They were very reverent. They were just kind of, you could tell they were just kind of peacefully walking and taking it all in. And of course, this is an important spot and site, for the restoration. And so, of course, I made sure that I was reverent and also was able to kind of take it all in. So it was very beautiful. For whatever reason, the mosquitoes were biting everybody, but they weren't biting me. The mosquitoes did not give me any trouble at all, especially at Hill Cumorah, which was really bad, but I didn't get one single mosquito bite the entire time. I ran into somebody at the airport the next day who was at Cumorah around the same time. I mean, he was covered with mosquito bites. So he must emit those certain chemicals that attract mosquitoes, and I must not have that. Apparently I don't. So I put on social media, hey, I'm here. I need a ride. Is anybody around to give me a ride? I'm thinking maybe somebody MHA or somebody. And I hear back from this guy named Kevin. And Kevin is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and he lives in Rochester, and he's just a few miles away. He actually attends the Palmyra Ward. And he's a fan of the program, watches it. And next thing you know, he's picking me up at the Grandin site. And when I get there, I'm bouncing around here. I'm sorry, I apologize. But I got to the Grandin site. It was really cool to see the printing process. Really enjoyed that, just to see the birthplace of the Book of Mormon. That was really great. Got to talk to some of the sister missionaries, had great conversations with them. Next thing you know, I turn around and there's my ride. So I'm like, dude, I need to get my luggage back at the visitor center. So we ran there, got the luggage. I walk into the visitor center and there's this guy just sitting there. He's like, "Oh, I watch your program." I'm like, "Oh, were you at MHA?" He's like, "No, they were just regular Mormons, just visiting taking their summer vacation." And he recognized me, which was pretty wild. I should have gotten a picture with him. So I got my luggage. I hop in the vehicle. And Kevin and I then proceed to head to Hill Cumorah. And it was really interesting. It was first of all, we got to do the little tour. We watched a little film. We heard the Christus. That we were in the Christus room, if you will, that had Jesus speaking some verses, and so we sat in there, and then we watched a film. It was actually about the story of the plates. How they ended up buried in Hill Cumorah with Moroni lugging them around. It was pretty well done. And we ended up taking like the nature trail walk up Cumorah, and it was a trek. I had no idea Cumorah was so big. I really didn't know it was as big as it was. That thing is pretty massive. I wasn't expecting that. That was one of my big one of my biggest takeaways is how long it took for us to get up there. And I was like pretty amazed. And it was cool because as we're walking, I get to have this conversation with Kevin, and we get to share our stories with each other. And this is where this channel becomes so unique, is that it really does connect with people on that level. So we had a really great conversation. He told me about some of his personal struggles he's had, and I actually invited him to come on to talk about it on a program later this month that I'll be doing as a panel discussion. So look for that. Real quick, just a reminder, don't forget this month's book drawing is Witnessing Miracles, the historical evidence for the resurrection in the Book of Mormon by Josh Gailey. Also, I wanted to point out that Wayfair is a new publication put out by Thoughtful Faith, Faith Matters, or Thoughtful Faith. Faith Matters, I think. Yeah, I'll look it up. Yeah, it's Faith Matters. Yeah, it's Faith Matters. And I'm going to have them on, Faith Matters. This is their new publication. It's a new journal they have. And so we're going to have them come on to talk about that. Jim Lucas gave me a signed copy of By the Means of the Urim and Thummim, Restoring Translation to the Book of Mormon. And I got Boyd Tuttle of Digital Legends gave me a annotated edition of the Book of Enoch. Pretty cool. I love those annotated books. I love David Hocking, who will be coming on the program, who's the editor of who did the annotated Book of Mormon, annotated Book of Enoch, annotated other books as well, including the Joseph Smith translation of the Bible as well. So a lot of stuff happened, folks. It was pretty awesome. I'm going through my notes, make sure I didn't miss anything. I did film, of course, at Hill Cumorah, so many of you probably did see that as well. I guess, this is the thing. Like, these are sacred sites for people of the Restoration. These are very important. And for me, it was a real honor and privilege to be an evangelical Christian who, one, is there to learn, is there to experience, to be respectful, and just to be open. And that's really what it's all about, is having that kind of, that's really important to me. Is I see way too many evangelicals who are antagonistic, who do their protest signs, who do all their evangelism, which is extraordinarily counterproductive, folks, to be honest with you. It's really, honestly, I consider a lot of it a waste of time, to be honest with you. I think it's counterproductive. I don't think it's doing the work that they think it's doing. I think it pushes people out of the kingdom. I think it's not a good thing. And so this is a different alternative channel that does things very differently, which, by the way, folks, for those evangelical critics out there, you really don't know or understand what I'm doing. And for those of you who have criticized me, you have criticized me on the most superficial level, that you don't know what you're talking about when you go after me, because you haven't spent the time. See, this is the thing. I've spent the time. I've done the research. And I really don't care. If somebody's going to attack me, at least do your research, at least take your time. And, when I reach out to you, at least return the message. I try to do everything as above board with courtesy and Christian charity. And I'm sorry, but a lot of these people, I'm really looking for the Christian charity on their part. I had conversations with some scholars who've had engagements with some of these characters, and they said, Steve, I don't get this. This is insane. Like, how do they even think that we're going to even listen to anything they say when their attitudes and their dispositions are so bad towards us? I say, yeah, I agree. I would not want to have anything to do with people like this. So I'm calling some of you out, not by name yet, but either way, and I don't want to. And I'm not a contentious person. We all know that. And I'm trying to build bridges and do things. Oh, by the way, I got this sent to me. These are metal bookmarks, a couple of prototypes. What do you guys think? Should I sell them? Would you be interested in buying some of these if I were to make them available? I'd like to hear from people on that as well. So I know this was not the most organized Tuesday tangent. That's why it's a Tuesday tangent. But I also want to just be able to get everybody caught up on what's going on with the channel. Thank everybody for everything that they've done for me. The great feedback. This phone is dinging all the time. I'm hearing from missionaries. I'm going tonight to go to a local ward. It's about a half-hour's drive, but I'm going to go to a local ward where we're going to be doing some family history. I was invited by one of the missionaries to attend that. So I'm going to go to that. That's kind of a last-minute thing. And so I'm also plugged in locally here on the ward level, and I hopefully will be interviewing my bishop, if you will, the person who oversees the particular geographical area that I actually reside in. I hopefully will be interviewing him soon as well. So much is going on. And I had to do this to get this all out there because there's just almost too much going on. but I'm just pacing myself. I'm doing the best I can. I just want to tell everybody how much I love you and I appreciate you. I appreciate all the great feedback. I want to thank all those of you who are financially supporting the program. For those of you who'd like to, don't forget there are links to support us on Patreon as well as PayPal. Don't forget the merch store, MormonBookReviews.com. We got the hot chocolate mugs, we got t-shirts and ball caps and the whole shebang. And just remember, this is the most important thing, though, is this, folks. Remember, all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.